Okay, now I'm starting the meeting recording. So, okay, I'm signed in now. And when you go to when you click on your name, once you're signed into the Critter Cloud, whether you're a member or not, you'll get a dashboard. And that dashboard will basically show you those services and products and things you have access to. Now, if you were just signing up for the first time, obviously you'd probably want access to the applications. So you'd go to something like desktop downloads. Now I'm going here for a different reason, but this is where, for the person that's just getting started, this is where you would go to start and download your apps if you haven't done that already. Now when I go here, you'll notice that I have access to all the Creative Cloud applications. But let's say that I did want to know what had come out in Photoshop or Lightroom or Illustrator or whatever since August 2014, that was it. So I could go to What's New. And once the What's New page comes up, it's a page for each of the applications in chronological order of all the features that have been introduced since 2013. So if I scroll all the way down to, there's August 5th, 2014, I can see these were the features that were added in that update. If I scroll up a little bit to the next update, which is October 2014, these were the features added in that update. So I can keep going all the way up to until the current release if I was curious of what I missed or what I hadn't been paying attention to or what new features have been introduced since the last time I looked. I can always know those things. So I basically went to this, compiled my outline from April forward and said, okay, I'm going to show all the things that were introduced since then. So I have a lot more things I can show you guys that were introduced. Unfortunately, we just don't have time to show everything. So without further ado, I'm going to show you a little bit of Lightroom, show you a little bit of Photoshop, tips and tricks along the way, and I'll show you some mobile apps that anyone can use, whether you're a paid Creative Cloud member or not. So let's start with Lightroom. So Lightroom, for those of you who are new, is our tool for managing your photos and for making non-destructive adjustments to your photos. So when you want to make corrections, when you want to make a photo look better, and we'll see an example of that, this would be the tool you could start in. Now, you might say, well, doesn't Photoshop do editing? And yes, it does. Photoshop is kind of, the way I look at the difference between the editing is Lightroom is for making basic adjustments to a photo. Make it brighter, make it darker, make it less contrasty, more contrasty, add an effect to it, add a filter, a look to it. Whereas Photoshop is pixel by pixel editing. It can do anything. There is no limit to what you can do with the photo in Photoshop. So it just really depends. When people ask me, well, should I edit the photo in Lightroom or should I edit it in Photoshop? I always throw it back at them. It depends on what it needs. If it only needs things that Lightroom can do, absolutely do it in Lightroom. But if it needs more than that, that's when you go to Photoshop. So it's a case-by-case scenario. So for example, here is one of the Iceland shots right out of the camera. Nothing's been done to it. That's the way it came out of the camera with no adjustments. Now, if we were to look at that full screen, that's pretty much how it looked the day I was there. But it's from an overall, looking at your screen, from an overall, how does the photo look? It's okay. Not going to win any awards by any means. It's okay. From a composition standpoint, I have some foreground, midground, the sky. It's in focus, it's sharp. The horizon's crooked. The clouds are pretty much gone. You don't really see much sky. So there are things we can do to make this photo better. And honestly, I haven't met a photo yet that couldn't be better. So there's always something you can do to make a photo better than using it right out of the camera. So in this case, what kinds of things would I do? And these are the kinds of things I would do, I would think about with any photo. Doesn't necessarily mean this one, but there are certain things I do to every single photo, and then I go from there to do other things it might need. So first and foremost, I would go over from the library module to develop. In develop, that's where you get all your adjustment tools. So on the right-hand side, and now the first thing, honestly, I would start with is white balance, but I know the white balance is okay in this photo. If the white balance wasn't okay in this photo, which means it would have it's too yellow or too blue or it has a cast to it, that's when I would adjust the white balance. But I'm satisfied with the white balance on this photo, so I would skip that step. Now, in Lightroom, 99% of the interface is exposed as sliders. You just slide something over, and the beauty of a slider, especially for a beginner, you can't go wrong. You slide it one way, and it's making the photo better or worse. If it's making it worse, go the other way. It's making it better, keep going until it's not making it better anymore. So you can't go wrong with a slider. However, there is that 1% of Lightroom that is hidden. And I'm going to show you the #1 hidden feature in Lightroom right now. It's an auto toning feature for setting your black point and your white point of your photo automatically. And unfortunately, there's no automatic white balance, or I'm sorry, automatic white and black. There's no checkbox for it. There's no button for it. You have to know the secret handshake. So this is that 1% that you came to the meeting for. All right, so to get to that 1%, to do it, I see my white slider and my black slider. And these are the handles in the middle here. This is where you would actually go to drag it one way or the other. However, the hidden feature for this is that if you wanted to do it automatically, you want the computer to look at the photo and automatically set the white and black. You hold down your Shift key and double click the handle. So when you double click, it will jump. In this case, it thought it was too bright, so it took the whites way down. And if I double click the blacks, it adjusted it slightly. So every single photo will be different. It will adjust them differently depending on what it thinks it needs to do in the photo. Now here's the thing about anything that's automatic. You may not agree. You may not like what it did automatically. You may want to change it. And it's still a slider. You think it took the white over too far? Drag it back. You can still adjust it. But you're starting off with this is before, this is after. So before, after, it brought the sky in a little bit more. All right, the next thing I would do after I just initially always do that double click on whites and blacks to start there. Then I go from there. What else would I do? The next thing, nope, not yet. The next thing I would do is Lightroom has and Camera Raw has a database of cameras and lenses. So it knows what this camera does when it's connected to this lens and takes a picture. It knows how much distortion there is. It knows how much whatever there is, how much vignetting there typically is. And so if I just turn on the enable profile corrections, it will look into this picture's metadata or exif data and say, oh, this was shot with a Nikon D810 and a 14 to 24 millimeter lens. I know that combination produces this effect. I'm going to adjust for it. And it adjusted for it. So before, now you can actually see it kind of bowed a little bit. It's a little curved on the edges. Adjust it, pulled it back out automatically because it knows what that camera on that lens produces. And every update to Lightroom and Camera Raw, we add more cameras and more lenses that are out. So as things come out, because of course the new cameras and lenses being introduced every day. So as more cameras and more lenses come out and we test them, we add them to the next update. So that's an older camera and older lens that was already there. So it knows that this was shot with a Nikon. It knows the model and the lens. So it knows all that stuff based on what it picked up out of the actual photo. All right, now that I've done that, the next thing I would do is start to look at what's bothering me about the photo. The next obvious thing bothering me is that it's crooked. When you're taking a landscape like this, the world should not be leaning one way or the other. It should not be going down. So we need to straighten up that horizon. We can do that a couple ways, but the easiest way is to go back to the basic panel. Actually, to go to the basic, oh, we don't have to go to the basic panel. Just go to crop. And crop, we can just pick it up and rotate it, but then you're having to eyeball it. I like to do it as much as I can mathematically or perfectly as possible. There's a ruler, which you can also use a slider to adjust. But the ruler, you can pick it up and drag it across something that should be straight, and it'll straighten it for you. Mathematically, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry did I eyeball it and tilt it just right. It's mathematically straight. I don't have to think about it anymore. I still may not like it. I may want it to be a little bit lean more to the left, but that is mathematically straight. Yes?
Does that 810 have a built-in level?
Yes. And I couldn't figure out how to activate it. I had it set to a button and it just would never come on. All right, so there we have it level now, so I can get past that part that's bothering me. The next thing that's bothering me is I'm not seeing enough of my sky. I'm not seeing enough detail in the entire image. Luckily, within the last 2 years, actually, it was about 2 years ago, we introduced a feature called dehaze. And since we introduced dehaze, we've added things to dehaze along the way. Like, for example, dehaze, initially, you would drag a slider and it would dehaze the entire photo. Now we've added, since then, the ability to dehaze part of the photo with different ways. So here's dehaze. It's in the effects area. So if I go to effects, there's a dehaze slider somewhere here. Did I miss it? Oh, wait, did I see it?
All the way down. Little camera.
Why am I not seeing it? Okay, I'm drawing a blank here. It should be right there. Am I not looking in the right spot? No, it should be under effects. No, it shouldn't have to select anything. Okay, let me just check one more thing here. Very good. No? That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Well, dehaze is normally like right there. What am I missing? All right, let me look around. I have the original photo. I have nothing selected. Let me turn off solo mode for some reason. I'm on 2012, which should have it. It's not in transform, it shouldn't be. It's not in lens corrections, it shouldn't be. It's in effects. All right, imagine if you will, there's a slider here called dehaze. That is too weird. Yeah, that's where I am. That's where it's always been. No, I'm in the right spot. It's just gone.
Yeah, it should be in.
Oh, you know what? All right. Full disclosure, I am working with a beta of a new version. And now I'm thinking it might have been moved. So let's just go. Oh, no, of course not. All right. Let's go look at everything now. Yeah, it does. That is weird. Well, not in the beta, no. All right, let me check something else. All right, it's completely gone out of this version. Okay, that's what happens when you work with betas. All right, anyway, on yours, it'll be in the effects panel. It is. Yeah, see, she's looking at it right now. And I would slide it over normally. That is so weird. Ah, wait, hang on. No, that still didn't do it. Okay, all right, we're going to do it a different way. We're going to go here. All right, I'm on my phone, and that particular photo should be synced. It is. Okay, so I'm going to go to my phone where I have Lightroom Mobile. Go to Lightroom Mobile and go to that same collection, which is demo content, I believe, and go to that same photo, all up to date. And if I go to my effects here, under Edit, I have dehaze. All right, so with dehaze, I just grab the slider and pull it over, pull it over, pull it over, and I can keep going. That's too far, but just to let you know, look at the difference from the left to right. Now that's too far, that's too exaggerated, and also if you use too much, usually of anything, you're going to start introducing artifacts and grain and all kinds of other things into the image. So while that's pretty small, blown up, it would be too much. So I'm going to pull it back, and maybe right about there. I can pinch and zoom and make sure I'm not getting any of that extra grain, which it doesn't look like it. Might go a little further. Right about there. Okay, so now that I've done that, and this is, I'm jumping ahead, I wasn't going to show this yet, but I'm able to do these edits in Lightroom on my iPad, my iPhone, the web, or my desktop. And no matter where I make the change, it will make the change, as you just saw it pop in on the desktop, across the board. So whether I had dehazed it on the desktop and looked at my phone, it would be there. In this case, since dehaze is missing out of this particular version I have here, I did it from the phone, and since it's metadata, even though the slider's not there, it still applied it to the photo. All right, so if I go back to the photo now, I can see that I've got a lot more detail here. And the other thing I would have shown you, which is probably also not going to be here, but there would be a dehaze slider for, and it's gone, there would be a dehaze slider for the graduated filter, the radial filter, and the adjustment brush. Now, why would you use that? Let me show you. Because this dehazed the entire photo, from top, bottom, left, right. What I now want to do is apply more to the sky. So, for example, if I grab a graduated filter, I can pick something. Let's do temperature. I'm going to do temperature and pull from the top down. I can stop it anywhere I want. And I can say, warm up that sky a little more. And I can adjust the temperature. So it's gradually doing it. The most intense is at the top, and it's gradually fading out as it goes down. So I could also do saturation. Make the sky a little more saturated at the top. And normally dehaze is here. I can dehaze also gradually from the top to the bottom. All right, so you have the ability to gradually do it as well. Now, this particular photo doesn't have it, but there's another photo where there's like a little rock or something sticking up out of the water that was kind of distracting. So in those cases, where you see these little ripples or things like that, you also have, it's not a healing brush like you have in Photoshop. It's called a spot removal tool. The spot removal tool was originally introduced to get rid of all things, sensor dust. Like you'd have a little speck of dust in every photo in the same spot. So you could grab this tool, make your brush size bigger or smaller. So I usually make it a little bit bigger than the thing you're trying to do. Maybe like that. And you would click, and it would automatically pick another spot to replace that with. And it was to get rid of that dust. Now the beauty of it is if you selected 50 pictures, because it would be in the same spot on every picture, whether you did it horizontally or vertically, you could do it on one picture and it would correct all of them, even if there was different rotations. So that's what that was originally for. Since then, it's been changed so it doesn't have to be a circle. So for example, if I need to get rid of something that's longer, I can now drag it and paint with it. And it will use that to get rid of it. Now let's say you don't like the spot that it's picking up from. It's picking up from another ripple right next to it. I want to pick up from something calmer. You can pick this up and move it. And another secret, hidden 1% thing, and I didn't even know this until about a month ago. Been there for I don't know how long and I didn't know it. Every time you use that tool, for example, let's say I click here, it randomly it arbitrarily picks a spot. But what like I showed you, what if you don't like the spot? You can pick it up and move it. But it used something to pick that spot in the first place. It used some kind of algorithm. that algorithm has more than one choice. So if you press /, it will keep running the algorithm and keep guessing different spots. So if you don't want to pick it up and move it every time, just press / and it'll go grab another spot, and maybe you'll like that one better. I did not know that until about a month ago. Yeah, and I've never, by the way, more than half the time, whatever it's picking, I don't like it. So now that I know I can press that button and have it pick a different spot has helped me tremendously, because I was always picking it up, moving it to a different spot, and now I don't have to. I don't know when that got introduced, but I know it's not new. Okay, so we went from, here, let's go back. We went from that to that. All non-destructively, which is the big point. If I want to turn any of that off, if I want to go back to the original or go back even in history, the history for that entire photo is always maintained. So I can go back to any step and even see previews of the steps as I went through them and click to get back to any part that I was adjusting and go further. Or let's say I printed it out or I looked at it bigger and I don't, the blue on the sky is too intense. It just doesn't look right. Well, remember, I did that with a graduated filter. Click the graduated filter, that little dot appears. That's that particular graduated filter. Click on it. Anything is readjustable. You don't like it, turn it down. Because every edit you do in Lightroom is always live. You're never locking it in. You're never saying, okay, I've done it, now I can't undo. It's there forever. So everything is undoable, everything is readjustable, everything is deletable. If I want to delete that adjustment, just hit the delete key and that adjustment's gone.
What about, most programs say, like the way everything else?
Except Lightroom.
Well, I mean, if you say, I love this picture, I want to keep this picture, I want to save it. Then you save it.
Okay.
Give it a name.
Yeah.
What does it do to your history?
Lightroom doesn't work that way. That's why I said everything except Lightroom. In Lightroom, you're not saving this particular picture with these adjustments in Lightroom the way it is because it's always active. If you like this particular picture and now you say, I want to go make a print, I want to share it, I want to give it away, I want to do whatever, then you would export it from Lightroom with those adjustments as a new file, as a TIFF, a JPEG, or whatever. And that would have everything locked into that new file. This one is always live.
So you have all these edits. What's happening? I mean, if you're doing this on your computer,
I am.
what is this doing to the file size? You're saving all these edits of all these.
All these edits are metadata, which is just text. Instructions. I haven't changed a single pixel. So the file size is the same, with maybe a 1 kilobyte difference for the metadata.
You're writing a recipe.
I'm writing text. How big is a text file? Not big at all.
Instructions.
Right. That's all it is. That's why it's non-destructible. That's why it's instant. You never see a progress bar. You're never waiting for something because it's not processing anything. It's writing instructions in text that are always unwritable or rewritable. It never becomes permanent until you export a new picture from this. That new picture is permanent, but this one's always live.
So if you say you close the app and open it up, it's still there.
Yep. Always has been since Lightroom 1.0. All right, so that was making that one photo better. Since we're at a Mac group, and I don't want to run out of time, I want to go ahead and cover this now. Let's go back to the phone for a minute. How many of you have a iPhone? Figured as much. How many of you use it every now and then to take pictures? Figured as much. The best camera is the one you have with you. I have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of camera equipment, but it does me no good if it's at home and I'm somewhere and I need to take a picture. So I reach in my pocket, I pull out my iPhone, I fire up the camera, and I take a picture. I have since 2007. The pictures back in 2007 were really, really, really bad, but they were better than the one I wouldn't have taken. Now, of course, the cameras have gotten a lot better since 2007. Now we're at 12 megapixels on the iPhone 6S on up. Even the iPad Pro 9.7 inch has a 12 megapixel camera. Even the iPhone SE has a 12 megapixel camera. So the cameras, the sensors, the megapixels, all that's gotten better over time. The one thing that's remained consistent until last week is that they all, no matter how good the camera was, no matter how bad the camera was, no matter how great your conditions were, no matter how great your lighting was, no matter how great your subject was, they all shot in JPEG. JPEG's great because it's a format that's universal, that you can share, that anyone can open with anything and view it. However, the minute you press the shutter and you take a JPEG, you've locked in a lot of things that you can't change. First of all, your image is compressed. So you have compression artifacts. Secondly, your white balance is chosen and locked in and you can't easily change it. Thirdly, you don't have the detail that you would have from that sensor had it been captured in RAW. Now these are arguments that photographers have battled back and forth with since the day RAW was introduced. And I'm not here to drum up that religious battle. You shoot in whatever you want to shoot in, I really don't care. However, I will show you the advantage of why you might want to consider shooting in RAW. Last week, Apple introduced iOS 10. And so every device that has a 12 megapixel camera or future devices that have better cameras can now shoot in RAW, except you can't do it with the built-in camera app. Apple's own app doesn't let you choose. It shoots in JPEG, that's it. So you would need a third-party camera to take advantage of RAW. And I think they did that on purpose because the average consumer doesn't need RAW. The average consumer doesn't care. And it would just confuse the situation for the average consumer. But for people that want to take advantage of it, that know better, that are hobbyists, enthusiasts, photographers, people that know what they could be doing, why not give it to them? So they finally unlocked this feature for third-party developers. Now I'm in Lightroom Mobile, which we got into earlier. Let me go back out. And Lightroom Mobile, about a year ago, added a camera built right into the app. So you could actually take pictures instead of having to take a picture with the iPhone app and then go to Lightroom and import that picture in. You could actually shoot the picture right into Lightroom. So I could get to that camera one of two ways. Since this device has force touch, I can press hard and take a photo, and it will take me right to the camera. Or I can go into Lightroom, go to the collection I want to be in, and the camera icon is in the lower right-hand corner of every collection. So if I tap the camera icon, that'll bring up the live camera view. And from here, you can see you guys, I could take a picture. But you notice on the left-hand side, there's something new. It has the initials DNG. Oh, it didn't turn. Okay, let me do it this way. It has at the top, DNG. That's now a button that lets me toggle my file format from the original JPEG that we had since 2007 to RAW. DNG stands for digital negative. So that's Adobe's RAW format. So Apple's adopted Adobe's RAW format built into their device. So if I switch to DNG, I can now use the same features, take the same pictures, and those pictures are now being added to Lightroom, and as soon as I get out of the app, they'll start syncing up to Lightroom and appear on my desktop, which is great, in their RAW format. I could at any time switch back and say, you know what, this one doesn't matter, I'll go ahead and take a JPEG. Because JPEGs are compressed, they take up a lot less space, 10% of the space of a RAW file. But I can now choose, whenever it's something important, to have the higher quality. When it's something I don't care about, I'll shoot JPEG. Now, I talked about it, but I haven't really shown you what the advantage is. Let's talk about the advantage. You have to have an app, but yes, the Lightroom app shoots RAW. There are other apps that shoot RAW, just not the Apple one. 6S and higher. 6S and higher, actually say SE and higher, because the SE has a 12 megapixel camera as well. So iPhone SE, 6S, 6S Plus, 7, 7 Plus, iPad Pro 9.7 inch, not the original one, the new one. They all have 12 megapixel cameras. All right, I stepped outside the day this release happened, and I took these two shots. This one is a JPEG. That one's the raw file of the exact same thing. I took the raw file first, but they're the same photo. I have my iPhone on a monopod, and so between the two shots, the camera moved a little bit because I was holding it with my hand, and the clouds were moving. So that's the JPEG, that's the raw file. So technically, they don't look a whole lot different. One's a little bit more colory, contrasty, but that's about it. However, oops, wrong one. Okay, so however, there is a big difference in what was actually captured. If I go to the JPEG, I can see that my highlights are blown out in that white, cloudy area. And typically, when this happens in a photo, I would go to the white slider and pull it back to try and bring that detail back in. And it did most of it. It got most of it as much as it could. But the difference is, it didn't, in that spot where it brought down the highlights, it didn't really bring any detail back. It just got rid of some of the blown out highlights. If I go do that exact same thing to the raw file, watch the clouds in that same spot. Okay, if I hover over it, all blown out, but watch the clouds. So we go from that to this. If we go full screen, this is the JPEG. That's the best I could do. The data is just not there versus the raw file where the data is there. That's one difference. Second difference, if I were to go to develop and I were to go to white balance, on the JPEG, I don't really have a choice. I have what was shot, auto, which tells the computer to automatically try and adjust it, and custom, which means I'm going to use a slider. But if I go to the raw file, since white balance is not locked in, I have all my choices. Show it to me with daylight. Show it to me with cloudy, which warms it up a little bit. Show it to me with shade, which warms it up a little bit more. I can pick and choose my favorite white balance setting and still adjust manually if I want to go from there. I don't get those choices with a JPEG because they're locked in. Also, the biggest difference, besides, or I should say second biggest difference, let me go back to as shot. Actually, I think I like daylight better. Daylight. Let's go to this one. Same thing, raw file there, JPEG there. The JPEG actually looks a little crisper, a little brighter. Nice. But when I zoom in on it, around the edges, they're kind of, because of the JPEG compression, they're kind of blurred in a little around the edges. I know it's hard to tell, but if you look at the edge of the chair, you can kind of see the graininess and how it's blurred in. However, if I go to the raw file and look at the edges, now, the difference is, it's actually going to, the entire picture is going to have a little bit more grain to it because there's no compression. I can go in and turn down the noise, but I have that choice now because there's no compression. There's no blending in. There's no JPEG artifacts here. We go look at the edge of the chair. That's the edge of the chair with more grain, with more what would be traditionally film grain. Because I now have the choice to go in and adjust this any way I want. So if I want to go turn down the noise on this photo, I can. Whereas with the JPEG, it was pretty much all locked in. So iPhone users now can rejoice if you care to shoot raw, you can. And it's always a toggle. Turn it on and off whenever you feel like it. 6S or SE is the one that starts with. Oh no, yep. You're right. Anything with an 8 megapixel, or anything that doesn't have a 12 megapixel camera won't do it. I don't know why. That was the cutoff, but that's the cutoff Apple chose. For obvious reasons. Why would they let you do something on an old phone when they could sell you a new one? All right, so they were gracious enough to go one rev back. So from the SE on up, can do it. And there are other apps that will shoot RAW, but here's the difference. These are now, and hang on, did I get out of it too soon? Probably. Yeah. Let me go back to Lightroom. Those photos, internet speed withstanding, the ones I took earlier, yeah, it's uploading. Here, let me show you. It's upload pending. It's uploading 3 photos right now, the 3 I took. So the RAWs are a little bit bigger. They're going to take a little bit more time depending on your internet connection. But those are now uploading to Lightroom Mobile, which is unlimited, by the way. I don't have a megapixel, or I don't have a photo number restriction. I don't have a size restriction. I can sync an unlimited number of photos as a Lightroom user, Lightroom Creative Cloud user. So those will eventually sync up. When they do, they will just pop into this collection on the desktop. The JPEGs will be JPEGs, the RAW files will be RAW files. And I can keep making adjustments or use them any way I want. All right, next. Back to editing. So let's do a panorama, something fun. All right, let's do this. These are 3 photos I took. Literally click, 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 because I knew I was going to want to stitch them together when I was done. Now, typically, especially when you're hand holding, you're going to have excess space around the photo when you stitch pictures together. So let me show you what happens. From here, I could right click or do a Control M. But if I right click on one of the 3 selected photos, I could say Photo Merge Panorama. And when I do that, all right, one of the photos just finished syncing. When I do that, it will create a preview. And that's what it would look like. Now, since then, I see something else missing. Oh God, don't install a beta before a meeting. All right, all right. Since then, there was an auto crop feature added. And the feature I was going to show you, the reason I was coming in here, is there's a slider underneath this in your version that is called boundary warp. So see what auto crop did? It just basically said, I'm going to get rid of the white space, and now you have a finished panorama. What boundary warp would let you do is, it's a slider you would literally drag from left to right, and it would warp the photo into that white space, so you don't have to crop it. I have a video on it. You can go watch it. And normally that slider is right there. No, because the panorama is not on the mobile app, so I can't show it there, and it would take too long to get back to the other version. I do, but I don't want to take the time to switch. Do you have a panorama you can bring up?
I can bring panorama up.
All right. All right, he's bringing panorama up. There's a slider. It's very cool. Slider. Oh, you know what I can do? I know what I can do. Hang on. Let's go do it this way. Let's go. Never mind, Jamie. I figured out a workaround. Let's go to those images in the Finder. Show in Finder. And it's going to be, which ones would it be? It's going to be 511, 5.9 to 511. Okay. So these 3. Let's open those in Photoshop. All right, in Photoshop, let's see if I can do it here. Merge to panorama. It's Photoshop, I'm not running the beta.
This isn't a beta version.
Photoshop's not, Lightroom was, yeah. So here I have it in Camera Raw. See, I told you there's a slider right there. All right, so auto crop would do that. Boundary warp does this. You got to see it, so I couldn't just talk about it. You got to see it. Yeah, it does a great job. So instead of me having to lose part of the photo, I could even do it with auto crop turned on, which is kind of cool because you can auto crop to a part as much as you want. Boundary warp's awesome. All right, that's one way. That's the non-destructive way, creates a new file, great, boundary warp. But the Lightroom teams and the Photoshop teams are always like taking it up a notch. Like, so boundary warp came out first, and the Photoshop team said, oh yeah, watch this. So instead of doing boundary warp, which you can do, let's do it a different way. Let's go and open up. It'd be easier for me to go find them this way. Let's go open, and let's go not desktop, cloud files. And I'm going to go to here. I'm having to think about this as I'm doing it, so that's why I'm distracted. I want to go here, and I want to go here. No, not there yet. I want to go here first.
Go back to Adobe, you're going to ask whatever happened to those.
And they're just going to say, well, why were you using a beta? And I'm going to say, you were right. I shouldn't have been using a beta. It's not their fault, it's mine. Betas aren't finished, so I shouldn't be using it. All right.
The idea of you using the beta is to find out what's wrong.
Yep. And now I know I can go back and say, hey, did you know these things were taken out of this last build? All right, let's open up these. Actually, I didn't even need to open them. But anyway, these are, again, shot as a panorama, right? Just individual shots. And now what I want to do is, I want to use the old Automate photo merge that's been there for years. The difference is, there is a new content-aware fill transparent areas checkbox. I'm going to leave it off for now. I'm going to add all the open files and just say, do it. Go make a panorama out of those open files, and it will build a new file based on it. And there it is. But the same thing. See how it's got all the transparent white space around it? And normally, back in the day, you'd just say, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. Crop it down to just the image. Now let me run that again. Let me close this one. And let me automate photo merge and check the box. Add open files, and away we go. So it's putting them all together. And then it filled in the space. Now you just see the marching ants, but if I deselect, that space has been filled in automatically using the surrounding pixels of the image, just content aware filled in. So you have either way to do it. Boundary warp, if that works, great. Or content aware fill, or any mixture of the two.
What do you call it, content?
Content aware fill. Yes.
It's aware of the content around it.
All right. Let's do this. Okay. While I'm here, let's do another one. Let's open up.
Can I have a quick question?
Sure.
Lightroom or do anything with 360 DR?
Will it or does it?
Does it?
It doesn't today.
Does it show something?
No? I cannot talk about features or things that have not been introduced. All right.
You said it's going to do it.
I didn't say I was gonna. I said it doesn't today.
Oh, okay.
If you shoot it on your iPhone, choosing the D and G,
Yeah?
can you save it as a JPEG if you wish?
Sure. You can share it out even from the mobile app as a JPEG if you wish. All right, let's go here and here. All right, the reason I keep opening and closing the same photo is I don't like what it did to it. Hold on, reset. Okay, open. All right. You know what? Forget it. I'm going to use a different one. Something is different about that photo. Something might have got saved. Looks like it's already done. So let me open up the next one. All right. So this is Iceland, but this is not my photo. Remember how I hate, well, okay, I'll even ask you, what do I hate about this photo? Crooked, right, the horizon line is going way up there. Should be straight across. So in Lightroom, we saw that we would use the ruler and it would rotate it and crop it in automatically. Photoshop would normally be the same way. You would grab the crop tool and you could rotate it if you want it and crop it in. Let me escape out of that. Normally it would look like that. So you'd rotate it or use the ruler. There's a ruler here as well. And straighten it out. But look at how much of the photo I'm going to lose because it has to crop it in order to straighten it. So if I were to click OK, that's what I'd get. But if I undo it and turn on the brand new content aware crop, I could now do the same thing. And notice the handles don't pull in. They pull in a little bit. I can pull them out if I want to. I can say, nope, I want all of it. But once I click OK, it will crop and then fill in that extra space. Same way Photo Merge did. So using the surrounding pixels. So now even when you're forced to rotate or lose some of your image, you don't necessarily have to lose it. If it's an area around the photo that's easily reproduced, then it will do it. It will replicate it throughout the image and give it to you. If it's not, then you might have to fix some parts of it with clone and patch and other tools. Okay. While we're in Photoshop, let's continue there. Let's open up. All right, we'll open up Myrna on the beach. And then I'm going to go to my CC libraries, where in one of my libraries I've got a nice background. We're going to grab the background out of Terry's library, and it's the horsey. All right, so I want to take Myrna and put her next to the horse on this side. So just go grab Myrna. I'll use the move tool, pick her up, drop her down onto that picture. Now, of course, she's a little tall, so we need to scale her down. Command-T for free transform. Scale her, pick her up, move her around. Now, you see the foliage in front of her legs? Her legs aren't there, so it's like this. I can't move the foliage out of the way to see her legs, so I'm just going to bring it down to the part to where it doesn't matter. All right, now, I don't know, I think she's still a little too big. Let me know when. About there? Okay. All right, so now we got her in place and we're done. Oh, you want the background that she was originally on to be gone. Okay, let's do that. Oh, you're going to make it difficult. Okay, so removing subjects from their background has been a thing that people have been clamoring to do since Photoshop 3, since we've had layers. And now, and even before then, but now, in every version of Photoshop, of course, it keeps getting easier, better, faster, different, more ways to do it. Now, in the past, prior to this update in CC, I would have done a quick select, selected her roughly, and then I would have gone into Refine Edge, and I would have removed the background that way. That's all changed. That's all gone. You still have quick select, but you don't need to do it separately anymore. Because now under the select menu, you have a brand new select and mask. Brand new feature dedicated for this task. So if I go to select and mask, first of all, it gives me an onion skin view by default. That's brand new, onion skin. And the onion skin view has transparency. So you can see what the image really looks like versus the background. Now, of course, I haven't made any selection, so it's turning it all the way up or turning the whole thing all the way down. But I'm going to leave it somewhere in the middle. And now, the reason I don't have to do quick select separately is because the quick select tool is built right into this dialog. So I go right to the quick select tool, and I can do, and here we'll zoom in a little bit, come down a little bit, and we'll make our brush bigger, and we'll just go ahead and make a quick selection. Now, quick select is called quick select for a reason. There's a reason they don't call it accurate select. Okay. Because now, if we were to turn this down, it looks really good. It looks like it did a great job. That's because you're looking at clouds on clouds. You're looking at, she was already on a cloudy grayish background, and now she's on a different cloudy grayish background, so it looks okay. I dare you to go look at it a different way. Like, let's see it on black. Oh, it really didn't do that great of a job, because now I can see where it missed. So I could keep making selections based on that, or just jump to the refine edge brush. And with the refine edge brush, I can say, you know what, I want you to recalculate that mask. I know this was the background color out here. So I'm going to start out here and just paint into her hair and around and have you recalculate on that color. Same thing in here. I want you to get that arm area out. Same thing down there, get that color out, and so far so good. So I can now play around with this. I can see it on white, I can see it on black, I can see it as an overlay, I can see the actual mask, I can see how good of a mask it's doing or not. I can see the onion skin. All right, the next thing, if I go in here a little bit more, let's go back to black for a second. I can see that it missed or grabbed too much down there. So I'm going to hold down my Option key with the quick select. Option key would mean subtract. So I'm going to subtract that area out. So the difference here, in quick select before I went to refine mask in the old days, once you did your quick select, that was it. You couldn't go back and change it if you saw you missed something. The quick select here remains active. So I can keep saying, oh, you missed something there, you add something here, you need to go fix something there. All right, I usually do a little bit of shift edge, just for giggles, like down maybe 1, 2, or 3%, we'll do 2%. And we'll show it on onion skin again, and I can again dial it all the way down, dial it all the way up, and see what it's doing. All right, if I'm happy with that, here's the biggest mistake that people are going to make. Output 2, for the first time, defaults to selection. So if I say, great, I got it cut out perfectly, and I click OK, when I get back to the image, I'm just going to have marching ants with the background still there. And it's going to be like, a beginner's going to be, what do I do now? And there's a way around that. You can mask or delete or whatever. But the easiest way to avoid all that is to switch this output to layer with mask. Because then it'll give you a brand new layer, hiding that background behind the mask that you can still continue to adjust if you need to, and you'll be ready to go. All right, so we'll click OK. And there it is. So now I have the original layer still intact with its original background. The new layer with the background still there, but hidden behind that mask. So if I want to go back in and use the paintbrush on the mask, I can go paint out more or do more. And keep in mind, though, she still has grass feet. All right. Did not eliminate that. But there it is. The new selected mask, making it much easier to composite and cut things out and put people in places they shouldn't be. Or they never were.
Which version is this?
The current version of CC. All right. Next. This one's kind of fun for people that do design work or anything with type, basically. Let's go and open up. Oh, yeah, we got to do that too. Let's open up that one. All right. You ever had, especially if you do design work, or even just you ever looked at something and said, God, I would love to know what font that is so I can type my new thing in that font. Except that's not a font. That was hand done 100 years ago.
Neon.
Right, by somebody who does neon. That's not a typeface per se. It was someone's art. So if you wanted to type something that looks like that, your only option would be to find a font that looks close to it. Because there won't be one that's exact because this was done by hand. There is no font for that. But even then, that becomes a chore. That becomes a, oh my God, I have no idea where to even start finding a font that looks like that. Right, because it doesn't exist. So here's what you do in the newest version. You grab the type tool and you type anything. I'm just going to type the same word, cafe. All right, type anything. Then, once you have a type layer, which I do, that layer still remains selected and active for the next thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the marquee tool. I'm not going to deselect that layer, but I am going to use the background. In the background, I'm just going to make a marquee or selection around the thing I want. This, because this is just all pixels. So I'm going to say, just select this area. I don't need that little whip there because that won't exist ever as a font. All right, so show me any fonts that look like what I just selected. And when you show them to me, let me apply them to the type I just made in a new feature called Match Font. Now, the way this works, first it examines any fonts you have on your computer. So it's already just looking at your existing fonts and showing you a list of the ones you already have that look like this or close to it. If you are a full Creative Cloud member, meaning not just on the photography plan, then you have access to Typekit. And Typekit fonts are part of your membership. It's a library worth over $40,000, and it will go search Typekit fonts for ones that look like it that you can sync down and use. But I'm just going to go ahead and say Match Font. And it brought up this list of fonts it thinks are close. Now, this is why I had you type something first. If you don't type something first, you're guessing. But because I typed something first, I can now just click and say, is that it? Is that it? Is that it? Is that it? And there is no it, it's just which one do I like best? Which one do I think is closest to it? To the thing that doesn't exist. Maybe it's that. Maybe that's the one I like best. But now I know, of all my fonts, it's Quimby Mayoral Regular that looks closest to what this client might like. And I've already had the conversation with them, it will not be exact. Because it can't be. All right, unless you go make a font. All right, so, and actually I kind of like that one too. So those would be my two choices. I click OK, and that becomes my new type. That is a font that I can now go in and click into and make more changes to.
Are you looking for suggestions for Adobe?
Always.
If you took that list you had,
Yeah.
put a little box beside each one of them, you could go click, 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 pick 3 or 4, hit the button, and it would come up as different layers.
Okay.
That way you have a choice for your client instead of having to go back and do it manually.
I like that. I will go ask the powers that be. Okay. Let's look at one more example of that with something that's a little bit closer to something that you can actually use because it wasn't handwritten. Let's go to this one. All right, so I've already taken the time to type the word AGFA in whatever font that is, and of course that's the original AGFA bottle. So same thing, while that's selected, grab the marquee tool, make a selection around the actual pixels, and now I want you to tell me, computer, what font is closest to what I just selected. Type, match font, and there they are. Now, of course, and this is the part I meant about Typekit. These 3 I have installed. These 5, 6, or 7 are not installed. Those are Typekit fonts that I have access to if I want to use. So I can say, is it that? Is it that? Is it that? Or is it this? I can go through and pick the ones that, actually I have to sync them first before I'd actually be able to see them. But I can see, just looking at the samples, if it's something I want to play with. So I want to play with that one. And I can go ahead and sync. Now, since this is supposed to be tips and tricks, I do have a tip for this one. While you're in this mode, you notice look at what happened to my original selection marquee. It changed to a box with handles. Because sometimes you can get different results just by varying what's selected. So if I tighten the selection around just 2 letters, it'll recalculate. And I'll get that one, which is even closer. It's just an algorithm, so depending on what it sees, it makes different guesses. All right. All of that matters, but as long as it's not too distorted, it should work. Okay, let's match font. Yes, sir.
Question about Adobe. I'm not familiar with Photoshop or the girl, the horse girl.
Horse girl. Okay, yes. The composite.
Okay, if I guess there's two backwards questions. One is, if you save that as a final Adobe file,
Okay.
and you sent that to me, do I have a way of deconstructing it to find out if it was actually a artificially created photo?
Not really. I mean, there are always signs for someone who knows what to look for, but there isn't anything that would automatically tell you no. Right, nope.
Same thing with like that. When you finally export it,
Yep.
same kind of thing, you can't deconstruct that.
Well, if I save it with layers and I send you a file with layers, you'll see the layers. But if I save you a flattened JPEG or TIFF, then you wouldn't see the layers and you just won't know unless you know.
What can you send that won't show the layers of it?
Anything other than a Photoshop or TIFF. So if I send you a JPEG, if I send you a flattened TIFF, if I send you a flattened Photoshop file, I can get rid of my layers anytime.
You have to flatten it.
Yes. All right. Portrait retouching is something I do all the time. I shoot portraits in my spare time, more so than landscapes. And the camera, no matter how attractive or average or not attractive the person is, can always make the person look worse. Okay? Because when we look at people in person, we don't do this. He's got a little hair there. We don't stare. We don't deconstruct a person in person. We just glance, look, glance away, glance, look, talk, whatever. But when it's a person frozen in HD in 36 megapixel form, you see every little defect. You see every little thing that we all have, no matter who you are. So retouching has always been a thing for me that I just simply try and make the person look like they look in person. Things that I wouldn't notice in person, I would remove. Things that are temporary, I would remove. If it's a pimple that's going to be gone next week that I just happen to photograph this week, why make it permanent? If it's a mole that's part of their identity, absolutely leave it. But things that are temporary, I get rid of. Things that are unflattering because the light made it exaggerated, I get rid of. Things that are, that again, aren't fair to that person because of the photographic process, I would adjust. Now, there are things that are just, the way the person looks. And sometimes we make minor adjustments on those just to make the person look, again, a little bit more like we look at them in person.
What the lens.
Right, what the lens distortion would do, exactly. Because I saw this one example where someone took the same photo from a 35 millimeter all the way up to like a 200 millimeter, and just the distortion in the face between all those different lenses was comical at best. So it really depends on a lot of things. When it comes to someone's face, they have eyes, nose, mouth, chin, their face shape, which again can be distorted by the lens. So a lot of times we just want to, again, get the person looking the way they normally look. So if we go to the filter menu now, Liquify has been the tool of good and evil. Okay, use your powers for good, not for evil. But it can do a lot, or it can do just a little. It's really up to the person using it. But now there's been something added to Liquify called Face Aware. So Face Aware Liquify, I know it worked because I see the two little handles on the side of his face. If the face is too far turned, like to a complete profile, it won't work. It needs to see both eyes, the mouth. It needs to see all the features to know that it's a face. If there are multiple faces in the shot, it'll identify multiple faces. And it will call it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, whatever it is. So there's only one face in here, and it gives me now control over the eyes, nose, mouth, and face shape. Now I'm going to have some fun with this guy who works for Adobe to show you exaggerations, but keep in mind you don't have to pull the slider all the way over. Just pull it over a little bit.
Does it have to be straight on?
No, it can be turned a little, but it just can't be a profile. All right, so for example, eye size. Smaller, bigger. Smaller, bigger. All right, eye height. Smaller, bigger. Now, where would this be useful? They were in the middle of a blink, and otherwise it's a great photo. I just want to open the eye up just a little bit to where it would be normal. Okay? For them. Eye width. Eye tilt. Creepy, creepy. Eye distance. Well, just put them all back to 0. That's where you started. No, and that's a feature that we're already working on, requested. Can you do an individual eye? I'm going to show you a way around it, but right now, no. Not without my workaround. All right, nose. All right, nose width. I could see this getting used a lot. See people using that all day long. Smile. Just smile more. You're happy. Smile a little bit more. Upper lip. Lower lip. Now I'm doing this all with sliders. If you want the interactive approach, you can do it interactively. You can grab any part of it and work on it directly. You don't have to use the sliders. And of course, we did mouth, face shape. Forehead, this one's fun. Cro-Magnon, down to, just kidding. All right, chin height. That gets really weird fast. Jawline. And my favorite that I'll be using a lot on my photo. No, just kidding. Face width. Now again, this helps with that distortion of the lens. Face is too wide, wider than usual. Bring it in just a little. Okay.
Is there a mobile app that can do something similar to that?
Yes, Adobe Photoshop Fix it started in Fix before it came to Photoshop. Right. You can download it on your iPhone or iPad. Photoshop Fix had Face-Aware Liquify first. So it was the first available in a free mobile app before it made its way into Photoshop. All right, so now someone asked the question, well, can it do it on one eye? And that was my first request, because usually when an eye is partially closed, it's only one of them. It's not both of them, usually. One eye was in the middle of a blink, one eye was open a little wider than the other one. That's usually when you need that. I think he's in the retouch library. In the retouch library, where is my guy? There's my guy. This is a stock photo. I don't know this guy. Now, here's my workaround. His right eye, your left side, is bigger than his left eye. So we have a choice. Make the right eye smaller, make the left eye bigger. I think make the right eye smaller is probably the right approach. But if I go into Face-Aware Liquify, it's going to do both of them. So don't worry about the right eye, his left eye. Don't worry about it. His left eye is normal. Don't worry about it. Let it do what it's going to do. Concentrate on the one you're trying to adjust. In order to make this trick work, you need to first go to your filter menu, convert for smart filters. That will turn that background into a layer that's a smart object. Now that you've done that, anything you do with Liquify is going to be non-destructive. So if I go to the filter, I go to Liquify, it detected that it was a face, and I can go in and I can do this interactively. I can, let's see, pull that down a little bit. But see, it's doing it to both eyes. In this case, I probably want to use a slider. Oh, that's as far as I can go. That eye was really big. Okay. So that's as far as I can go on the eye, height and size. So that's as small as I can make it without doing a second operation. All right, so now it made this one too closed. But don't worry about that because we know that one is normal. Click OK. Whenever you do it on a smart object or you do the convert for smart filters first, notice what it does. It gives you the ability to turn it off and on so you can see your before and after. But more importantly, it adds this layer mask to it. That layer mask is nothing's mask, meaning it's completely white. You're seeing the whole effect. Well, I want to see the whole effect on that eye, but not this one. So I just grab my paintbrush with black paint and paint over this eye. I can't tell if I got black paint or not. Let's do this. I don't. Okay. Paint that eye back to normal. So now, before, after. And if I need to do it again, I can duplicate that layer and take it in and do it another time to make it even smaller. But you get the idea. So I just told it to hide it on this eye by using the mask in that one spot, but show it on this eye until we get it to where you can just say left or right.
You use that in conjunction with other liquify tools?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, the face-aware liquify, if we go back to it, which, by the way, another reason you want to do it this way is you can always double-click to get right back to where you were, right back to the same settings. That's just a button that's chosen. So if you want to go back to warp and warp the way you always did. My ears are too big. Can you make them smaller? Sure. Oh. There you go.
Looks like his lips are going down.
Then I'd make him smile a little more. All right. We want to make him happy with what we just did. There we go. He's happy now. Click OK. No, you cannot believe a photo. You couldn't believe a photo 10 years ago. You definitely can't believe one now.
That'd be really impressive. Shouldn't have to show teeth.
Oh, that would be impressive. Take a little work, but I can make it happen. More time than we have time for. Okay. I promised you, and I don't want to forget, and I don't want to run out of time, so let's do it now. All this is great for the people that need to do this, that want to do this, and are willing to pay to do this by being a Creative Cloud member. For $9.99 a month, you get both Photoshop and Lightroom, and you get all the new updates all the time, and you have all the features and unlimited Lightroom storage. That's great. But what about the casual user? What about the person that says, well, wow, that stuff that Terry showed me is really cool, but I never need to do that on a regular basis? Is there some way I can do some of this stuff or some fun stuff without having to be a Creative Cloud member? And the beauty of it is the answer is not only yes, but all of it is free and has been for years because we have mobile companion apps that in some cases the features start there before they even make their way into the desktop. Face-aware Liquify is an example. So you have Lightroom Mobile, which is a free app. Now, if you are not a paid member, that doesn't mean you can't use Lightroom Mobile. That doesn't mean you can't shoot RAW. It doesn't mean you can't use dehaze and all those features. The difference is the paid member gets to sync the photos back to the desktop. The free member doesn't. That's it. But you have all the editing tools, all the organization tools, all the sharing tools, all the abilities that the paid member would have except the ability to sync the photos back and forth. Now, he asked the question, hey, is there a way to do this? Or I forgot what you asked, but I said Photoshop Fix. All right, so let's start with that.
You
Yes.
said that you can't sync them, but if you sync the pad to your computer, would that sync them?
Nope, not back into Lightroom.
Because they're Adobe apps.
Right.
Is there any way to get the photo back?
Well, you'd have to export it out
You
and,
can export
yeah,
it
sure.
out? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's do this. I'm going to just, again, so I don't run out of time, I'm going to start with an app that's more about storytelling than it is about editing. Because if you don't need to do a lot of editing, then your task is simple. Any app can do simple adjustments, brightness, contrast, colors, whatever. Once you've got your images looking the way you want to look, how are you sharing them? How are you presenting them? How are you telling your story? So I started off by showing my Iceland photos. But when I got back from Iceland, I have, literally hundreds of photos, but of course I'm going to pick out my favorites, my best. And now I want to share those with friends, colleagues, the world, whoever I want to share them. Now, obviously, I can put them on my website. And I did. I put some in my portfolio on my website. But then you'd have to know to go to my website to see them. And you don't get the story behind it. You just see the pictures. So one of my favorite completely free Adobe apps, and they've been all renamed. There's 3 of them now. It was formerly called Adobe Slate. Now it's called Adobe Spark Page. Adobe Spark Page is available on iPhone, iPad, or even your web browser. Even if you don't have a mobile device, you can still use it on the web. Or if you have Android, you can just use it on the web. And with that app, I told my Iceland story. And here's how I told it. This is it. And you see, even when you go to it, there's a button to create your own. So even if I sent this to you and you've never seen it before, and you said, hey, this is kind of cool, I want to make my own, you click that and you start making yours. But here's mine. This was created with Adobe Spark Page. I started the process on my iPad simply because the screen was bigger than my phone. And the nice thing about Spark Page is that it lets you pull in your photos from Lightroom. So if you are a Creative Cloud member and you got your sync collections, you can bring in your photos from there. But if you don't, you can bring them in from your camera roll. You can bring them in, I think, even from Dropbox. You can bring them in from a number of places. But because I was a Creative Cloud member and my photos are already adjusted and ready to go in Lightroom, that just made this even easier. Now, you see the home page or the picture. But if you scroll down, you see the text that I put in to start to tell the story. You see a photo grid. And this photo grid are individual pictures that you can click on to make larger based on your internet connection, which is, this one's relatively slow with everyone on it. But anyway, that picture will zoom up and you'll be able to pan around and look at that picture larger. I'm not going to wait for it. So I started the story, I started talking about it. You can, of course, format your text, make it bolder, highlight, whatever. You can also put in hyperlinks. So I put in a link to a blog post that had all the gear that I specified up here in the picture. You then can also designate whether a photo is big or whether a photo is small. You can designate whether a photo is a window with a caption on it. Your captions can be text. Your captions can be other photos. Your captions can be videos. Your photo can be full screen. You're making these choices as you place each photo. You can put in videos, if they're hosted on YouTube or Vimeo. Just put the link in. And then the person can actually play that video right there. And the only thing the person on the other end of the receiving end of this needs is the link. They open it up in their browser and scroll through my story. Now, this is the most extensive one I've ever done, because mostly all the ones I've done prior to this were short or just for demonstration purposes only. But I told the complete story, including showing all my favorite pictures, showing some behind-the-scenes looks, some behind-the-scenes shots for free, completely hosted by Adobe.
Does that include your narration? Is your voice on that?
No, but that's the third app. So Adobe Spark, there's 3. Adobe Spark Post, Adobe Spark Page, which is this, and Adobe Spark Video. The difference between Page and Video, Page is telling your story with text and images and video links. Video is telling your story with text and narration. I'm sorry, images and narration. So under each image, I would narrate that image. And then once I'm done narrating all the images, when I share that link, the person hits play, and they're playing back a seamless movie of the images with my voice. So it just really depends on how you want to tell your story. If you go tell your story, part of your story with voice first, you can put the voices in here. So you can have a Spark page that includes all of it. The pictures, the text, and narration if you go narrate the pictures you want to narrate with Spark Voice. Or I'm sorry, I keep calling it voices because it used to be voice. It's video. All three are free apps, or they all now have web interfaces too.
Adobe Start Page.
Spark Page, Spark Video, Spark Post. Post is for social media posts or banners or creating images with text on them.
So you send this as an email?
You send the link to anyone you want, as an email, as a text message, or any way you want to send the link out. Put the link. You can also embed this on your website.
Post it on Facebook.
Or post it on Facebook. Like I did it all those ways. I posted it on Facebook. I sent out an email link. I sent out text links. I embedded this Spark page in my blog post on my website. You can share it any way you want.
Can you share it to YouTube?
No, because this is not a video. This is a web page.
There's one you did.
The Spark video you can share as YouTube, yes. All right, so you get all the way down to the end, and it says created by me, appreciate, and it says it was made with Spark page.
One other thing you did, what Adobe did, is feature it as one of the best examples.
Well, you don't get to feature your work, they do. So I didn't do it, they did.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just adding that to the website.
Yes, it was featured. It still is featured. So, for example, if you go to, let me bring up the app. And the only reason I'm showing this on my iPhone as opposed to the iPad is because I'm using the iPad to do the stream right now of our meeting. But anyway, hang on, let's go back here a quick time. All right, so if I go to my Adobe folder, there are the three icons on the right side of the three apps. So Spark Post, Spark Page in the middle, Spark Video on the bottom right. If I go to Spark Page, it'll launch, and you see the familiar picture in the upper left corner. I'm in the inspiration gallery. I made it. Yay! All right, but anyway, and you can scroll through and you can see other people's Spark pages to get some ideas of how you might want to do yours. I'd suggest you starting with this one in the upper left corner. That's a great one to look at. Built in the app right now, at least for now. But anyway, when you're ready, there's a plus sign at the bottom. Hit the plus sign, and okay, yep, got it. Hit the plus sign. Hit the plus sign. You can import, you can't import music files. You can bring in a video that has music in it. All right, so the first thing it's asking me is the title. So mine said Iceland on the original one, and the background photo that was behind it. So if I want to do this again, or if I want to do this, hang on. My tapping's acting funny. There we go. Let's just call it MacGroup for now. And the subtitle. Meeting, or by Terry White, or whatever you want to say. All right, and then it says, okay, where do you want your background photo to be? Now I can grab the photo from my phone. I can grab the photo from searching royalty-free photos. I can grab the photo by taking a picture with my camera right now to be the background, so I can make you guys literally the background photo right now. All right, use that photo. Or I could grab the photo from my Lightroom collections, or from, I think Dropbox was another choice, and there might be one more choice I'm not thinking of. But there are other choices besides Lightroom. And of course your camera roll, if I didn't say that already. Okay, so now I've got my title and my background photos. So it says scroll to start writing your story. So when you scroll up, you will always get these 6 choices of what you want next. Do you want another photo next? Do you want text next? Do you want a button next that people will click on that takes them to a web link? Do you want a video to be next? Do you want a photo grid to be next, which is that that grid of 4 or 5 pictures that I had? Or do you want a glide show to be next? I think you saw one earlier when I was scrolling through the glacier shots. Not those. That's a glide show, where it's going between photo to photo to photo. So whatever you want to be next, usually it's the first thing's going to be text. So we text and type or paste in whatever text you want. And then there's a plus sign always above and below whatever it is you're working on. So if I said hello, because I'm not going to sit here typing a bunch of stuff. Oh, sorry. So if I said hello, and again, I'm not going to sit here typing a bunch of stuff, but you get the idea, type as much as you want. Then the next thing would be, what do you want next? Oh, I want another photo. Okay, where do you want to get that photo from? Same choices. So this time I want to get one from my Lightroom photos. And I want to get one from demo content, which is what we were working on before. And this is in reverse order, so I think my newer one's at the bottom. And there's at least one of the pictures we took earlier, but let's say I want to use one of the house or Iceland pictures instead. Let's use that one. And I can add more than one, so I don't have to keep making the same trip back and forth to this interface. I'm going to add one, and then it says, now how do you want that picture to appear? Do you want it to be just in line like it is now? Do you want it to fill the screen? Do you want it to be a window that people scroll over? Do you want it to be full width? Do you want it to move it up and down in the order if you have more than one, or do you want to replace it or delete it? And then guess what you do next? Plus sign. Add the next thing, whatever it is, and you just keep adding things until you're done. Oh yeah, I should have put this something before this, right? So, oh yeah, I should have put another picture before this one. Then I would add the plus sign above.
I thought you said 6 options. I think so.
That was because we're already on a photo. Those are the 6. There is no button for done. The button for done is you finish adding things and then you share it in the upper right corner. So whenever you're done, whenever you're ready to share it, you share it. Well, the difference is, so our question was, you can technically use this as a blog. Well, not really, because, well, you can, depending on how you think of a blog. This is one page at a time with its own custom URL. So tomorrow when I write a news story, unless I added it to this one, it's going to be a new URL. So it's not really a blog because people wouldn't be able to follow it unless I gave them the new URL every single day. If I continued it, then it would be a blog. But I don't know how long this would be before it becomes unruly, because you start adding 30 days to this, and then it's too long for people to scroll. Yeah.
I occasionally will make a movie of some sort when I have to share it with someone. I get it says straight email.
Right.
What can I use to send those kind of things that are too big to email?
The best way to send a movie has always been via YouTube. Post it on YouTube, even if it's private. You can make it either private or unlisted, so no one else sees it other than the people that have the link. That way you never have to worry about things being too big for an email attachment or being blocked by spam or whatever, because it's just a link to a YouTube video. So that's why, in the case of even Spark Page, if I want to add a video, it says, okay, paste in the link to that video, rather than me trying to waste time uploading a video here. So if I put it on YouTube, I can use it everywhere. If I put it in individual apps and individual emails, it just becomes more work. So YouTube is always my default go-to. It's free. They look great. They can even be up to 4K quality. And I never have to worry about compatibility, because just about everybody, almost in the world, can watch a YouTube video. Never have to think about it. It's free. Why not? And again, it doesn't have to be public. You don't want the world to see it? YouTube gives you 3 choices: public, unlisted, or private. Private, you have to invite people to go watch it. Unlisted means it doesn't show up in the search engine. But if someone knows the link, they can see it. So I usually do unlisted, unless I do want it to be public. Yes?
This is Spark Pages you showed?
Correct.
So, and where can you export it to? Show us that.
So sharing is basically, let me get out of this. Cancel, cancel, cancel. Sharing is basically, you have two choices. Well, I shouldn't say that. I should say it this way. Your page is being hosted by Adobe. So the minute I click share on this, a URL will be generated right here on the screen. I can always come back if I didn't copy it, but it will copy it to the clipboard. Now, you have some additional options down there. Like if I know I want to go ahead and share it on Facebook, I can do that right now. If I know I want to share it on Twitter or email, I can do that right now. If I know I want to share it on iMessage, I can do it right now. But even if I say I'm not ready to share it to the world yet, go ahead and make it. Give me the URL, and I'll decide who I share it to later. That's fine. The last option with the two brackets, that's for embedding. So if I tap on that, I'll get the embed code to put it on another web page.
Jerry, how would you add pan and zoom to the slipshot?
The way I would, what do you mean by pan and zoom? So where it's moving by itself or the person? Yeah, glide show. The glide show pans and zooms. Well, it does a motion effect. I don't know that I would call it pan and zoom. There isn't really technically a pan and zoom, but glide show is the closest thing. You were asking? No, I just hit continue and it will generate it. I didn't hit continue yet, and it will generate a URL. Yeah. So if I go cancel out of this, go back to my pages, and go to my Iceland, which has been viewed 13,000 times, by the way, I'm pretty happy. I didn't really want to go into it, but if I share it and I hit continue, I didn't make any changes, but it thinks I did. And it'll give me the URL after the progress bar goes by.
So then you want to go back into it.
Yeah, by the way, initially, when you shared it, like when it first came out, that was it. You made mistakes, tough, go make a new one. Now you can go back and edit it as much as you want. And it keeps the same URL. So I have edited that story like a dozen times since I posted, because people have found typos and things like that. And there were pictures I left out, and I put them back in. So that story has been updated quite a bit. But it kept the URL. So anyone that had the URL would get the current version whenever they go back to it.
If somebody's doing weddings or portraits, can they use this to allow the person to see it?
Okay. Yes, they can, but that's not the way I would do it. His question was, if someone's doing weddings or portraits, can they use that to share their work so that the client can see it? I would use Lightroom for that. Because Spark pages for, in my opinion, for telling the finished story. If it's, I shot your wedding, here are your pictures, pick them out, and then we'll make the finished story, that's jumping the gun. I'm not ready to go to Spark page yet. Where I would go instead is in Lightroom, I would put their wedding photos or whatever photos you want to share in a collection, sync that collection by checking the box to Lightroom Mobile, and then once I've done that, there's an option for every collection that's synced called Make Public. When you choose Make Public, let me do it on something smaller. This one. Make Public. It's generating a URL specific to that collection. That's what I would give the client, because then they can look at 10, 20, 1,000, 10,000 pictures in that collection without having to scroll down a long story. All right, so now I've got the URL for that specific collection. Copy it or open it in the clipboard, or open it in the browser, but I'll copy it. Then I'll open it in the browser. And the view it will take them to looks very much like Lightroom. It will be the grid view of those photos. Now, you have the option of going in and saying whether or not they can download the photos or not. But usually you wouldn't let them download until they're paid or until you were finished. And once this comes up, there'll be a grid. They can click, zoom in the photos, go to the next one, so forth and so on. Then they can leave comments and hearts, which you couldn't do on individual pictures with Spark Page. Yes, it's hosted by Adobe. That's part of your membership. Okay, so that one will pop in eventually, but let's click on this one. And if I wait for it to finish rendering, the comment button is right here on the bottom left. The heart button is here just to mark it as a like. Now, what do they need to comment? Anyone can look at this link for free. I can give it out to everyone in this room. You click on the web browser, you're looking at the same photos I am. If you want to comment though, still free, but you have to have an Adobe ID, which is free to go make. Because you have to sign in to leave comments so we don't get a bunch of people just randomly leaving spam, and you would know who the comments are coming from. Other than that, they've got the ability to look at the photo, to go to the next one, to see the work that you have done that you want them to pick. And if they say, oh, I really like that one, they just click like. Now, they're clicking like on a web browser, don't know anything about Adobe, don't know anything about Lightroom, don't know anything about Creative Cloud or anything, don't care. But you're sitting at your desk and you're waiting for the reviews to come in. Which photos did they like? Now, you don't know when they're going to click like or not. They could do it today, they could do it tomorrow, they could do it next week. It's a wedding. They're busy. When I go back to Lightroom, and because I was already on that one, let me try it again, sorry. When I go back to Lightroom, any photos that have been commented or liked, I'll do one more, wait for this one to finish. Come on, render. There we go. Like's been done. So it's syncing that over. And notice the little yellow flag that appeared on the desktop? So next time I open up this catalog in Lightroom and I see any yellow flags, that means I've received activity since the last time I looked. Now I want to see what that activity is. I click, review all comments. It takes me, it puts the commented or liked photos up front. So I can then click on that photo and say, oh, Terry White likes this one. Oh, Terry White likes that one. And any comments Terry White would have said would have been here as well. That's the way to do it. There's even a workaround for the Adobe ID thing. It's so simple. If you don't want your clients to have to create their own Adobe IDs just to leave comments on your galleries, then go make one for them. Go make one for them. Client at terrywhitephotography.com. Use that and this password when you want to make your comments. Then go make the comments. You can make one up for them to use. Otherwise, they just go create their own Adobe ID. And since the URLs are individual to each collection, you know who the client is, so you don't need their name because you gave it to that client.
And they can only comment, they can't capture and print.
Correct. To a point. Anything can be screenshotted.
It's on the internet, they can get it.
Right.
Could you add your, like, watermark to it anyway?
Not automatically. You'd have to process the watermarks on the images and then show that collection. I wish that were a feature of Lightroom Mobile, that it would use the same watermark feature that's built in, but it doesn't. Any questions in my last 4 minutes? These are all been good questions anyway. So anything you'd like to see that I didn't see that I could show in 3 minutes and 47 seconds?
Wow.
Wow. Oh, let me show you one. Let me show you something I can show you in 3 minutes and 47 seconds. I'll show you one other Spark app that is actually my favorite. I love Spark Page, but I don't get to use it every day. I'm not telling a big story every day. But what I am doing every day or regularly is creating posts for social media, whether it's a picture that I just want to put some text on, whether it's a banner that I want to put across my Facebook page, or anything like that, whether it's a picture I want to tweet. That stuff I do on a regular basis. And even if it's not for social media, if you just wanted to create something that could be used, you can do it in 2 apps actually. Spark Post is designed for social media, so I'll go there first. When you go to Spark Post, there are examples, there are templates, I don't want to call them templates, but they're templates that are already here. And all you'd have to do, you can remix any of these. So let's go to the travel category. And let's say that I like the keep climbing example. So when I go to that one, it's got text, image, and more text. Now, any of that can be changed. Obviously, I could use it as is, but usually if you're doing this, you want to do it with your content. So if I tap remix, now anything is fair game to change. So for example, if I want to swap out the photo, there's a photo button at the top. I go to the top, I get my photos from the same sources, including my Lightroom photos. So when I go to my Lightroom photos, and I go to Iceland, and I go grab something tall, because that was kind of a tall post. So let's use like a waterfall or something. Internet speeds withstanding. Okay, that works for me. Let's use the stairs. Plus, I don't have to scroll. Thanks. All right, we'll let that render. Come on, come on, come on. All right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get off the Wi-Fi. There we go. All right, now notice what it did. It brought in my photo, but it toned it the way the template had already been toned. If I don't like that toning, I can go to the palette and change it. I could say use any coloring I want or none if I don't want to use any coloring. Now that's the toning for the actual text, I should say. If I now go to the photo, that's the toning for the photo, and I can say none. Give me back my red stairs. If I want to change what it says, I can say okay, tap into what it says, and change the text to whatever I want to say. So climb, instead of climb on, I want to say climb up. Done. Now, what if I don't know if I'm not good at picking styles and colors and fonts and things like that, but you know what you like when you see it. There's a know what you like when you see it button. It's the wheel at the bottom. So if I tap the wheel at the bottom, I just dial until I like it. I don't know what I like, but I'll know it when I see it. If life were only so simple. So just dial until you find something you like. And then even then you can adjust it further. So I can turn off the background if I didn't like the background, whatever. Yes? Maybe. If you go to font, you'll see all the fonts. All right, so I can change font if I want to. Anyway, I can change any of these aspects I want, and including, my favorite is the ability to go in and say, well, I need to resize it for something else. So it knows everything that's there, and it knows what needs. So maybe I want to put this as a front to a video. So it has nothing to do with social media. I want to make this the opening to a video, 16 by 9. It just reformats everything to fit a 16 by 9. And now I would export it out and save it to my camera roll, and I have a front end to my video that I'm going to do in iMovie or Premiere Pro or whatever I want. All right, that's done. The other one, and we'll finish up with this one in my negative 1 minute and 16 seconds. And this has just been a long time favorite. It's called Comp CC. Again, free. Comp CC, think of it as InDesign for your iPhone or iPad. The ability to literally put together a design or layout from scratch. So if I were to tap the plus sign, please wait. And it's probably loading my old projects. Oh, I thought I turned that off. I did turn that off. Okay. Yes, 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 I know, thank you. Yes, let's do another new one. First, I get to pick what format I want to be in. Anything from a print format to a web format to a mobile format. So if I go print and I say I want to make it 8.5 by 11, I'm making it 8.5 by 11. Now I've got a blank page. As a designer, not even as a designer, as a person laying this out, I know I want certain things in certain places. I now either go put those things into places on this page or put the placeholders for those things on this page. I want a nice big image across the top. I want some text in the lower right-hand corner. I want the text to be smaller. I want a picture here. And maybe I want it a little smaller. And I want 2 more that are just like it. Get the idea? Now, I go in and start to lay things out. I want the picture to go in there. Where do I want to get it from? Look familiar? On the camera roll, in Lightroom, in Adobe Stock, whatever. Take a picture right now. So we'll take a picture right now. Yes. Use. All right. Move it around in the picture or in the frame. So forth and so on. I want to change the text now to actually be real text. Go type it in. When I'm done with this, and I can change colors and opacity and all that. When I'm done, export. Send it to my desktop to finish in InDesign, Illustrator, or Photoshop. Make a PDF right now so I can send it to someone via email or whatever I want to do. Or just share it as a static flat image for free. Adobe Comp CC for iPad and iPhone.
That's an amazing app.
I know.
Having done an awful lot of this.
If you would have told me I'd be doing this on my phone back in the days when I was fighting the InDesign versus Core battle, I would have laughed at you. Like, I'm actually doing this on my phone. Now, I am going to just show you what happens. I'm going to send it to, I can send it to InDesign or pick an app. InDesign, Photoshop, or Illustrator. Pick one. InDesign. All right, let's send it to InDesign. Now, what that's happening, we'll wrap up the meeting now. We're not going to wait for it to finish. But what's happening right now is it's generating, in this case, since I said InDesign, an IDML file, which is a cross-version InDesign document. It'll open up that, it'll send it to the cloud, sync it down to my desktop, and the minute it appears on my desktop, it'll launch InDesign and open up that file ready to be continued to be edited. If I need to do that. Yes. Yes. Right. So you start it on the phone in front of the client, get the idea of what they want, and then go home and finish it. And by the time you get home, it's already there, open and ready to go. Thank you for your time. Check out Comp CC, Photoshop Fix, Adobe Photoshop Mix, Adobe Illustrator Draw, Spark Page, Spark Post, Spark Video. They're all free. You can be doing amazing things for free on your mobile devices, especially if you have an iPad.